Chapter 181. Corpse-filled war. They sought their fortune amidst the danger. If they were able to survive after 5 years, the rewards they could obtain would be sufficient for him to live in riches. However, would they still have their lives at the end of it? Hu Kai. Just as the crowd was about to leave, a resplendent spiritual light suddenly erupted from within the spirit mine. The spiritual energy turned even more abundant inside the spirit mine in an instant. This is the medial grade spirit stone raw ore. Run. Although they had uncovered the medial grade spirit stone, the expressions of the miners were filled with horror. They dropped whatever they had in their hands and rushed over in the direction of Xiao Chen and the others. Ga ga. A miner was slightly slow and he was grabbed by a withered hand. With a casual pull, he was wrenched into 2 halves. The withered hand had gorged out the miner's bleeding heart. When the crowd dispersed, Xiao Chen finally saw the owner of this strange hand. It was a rotten corpse that emitted a black qi from its entire body. It placed the heart into its mouth and it chewed continuously, giving off zzz sounds. The group of miners were hiding behind Xiao Chen and his group. Although there was panic on their faces, they were already used to this. They did not seem too uncomfortable when they saw this rotten corpse. Ye Wen revealed an extremely grave expression. He stared at the raw ore that gave off a spiritual light behind the corpse. The 2 of you stay back. In the future, if the 2 of you encounter a monster of this grade, you just have to disperse the crowd. Hoo. Ye Wen drew the small saber out of his scabbard and spun it in his hand continuously. It created an intense air current within the mines. The corpse felt a dangerous aura and roared in a strange manner. It turned into a black phantom and launched itself at Ye Wen. Its sharp nails had a cold glint as it tried to claw Ye Wen's face. Scram! Ye Wen shouted loudly. The saber that spun in his right hand struck the corpse continuously. The intense air current pushed the corpse far away. A black fluid that stank of rotting flesh dripped out from its body as it flew back in the air. The body had already been dead for an unknown amount of time. It was not able to feel pain or anything else. After it was knocked back, it roared out. A disgusting fluid flowed out from the corner of its mouth and it launched itself at Ye Wen again. As Ye Wen fought the corpse, they slowly drifted to the left. This caused the fight to change locations. After a while, they had distanced themselves from the crowd. At this moment, Ye Wen's aura exploded out intensely without holding anything back. Streams of resplendent saber qi struck the corpse. Black fluid spurted out of its body. Just as the black fluid was about to land on Ye Wen's body, an essence shield immediately appeared to block the black fluid. Zila. The black fluid actually continuously corroded the essence. Ye Wen shouted and the essence shield trembled. The black fluid was immediately knocked flying. Dang. 1 man and 1 corpse, their battle became faster and faster. The ordinary people could no longer see their figures, they could only hear metallic clangs resonate in the air. A light flashed in Xiao Chen's eyes as he did his best to see the situation. The claws of the corpse were actually as hard as profound iron. It was able to resist Ye Wen's saber lights. There was a cold breeze and the small saber in Ye Wen's hands vanished. Xiao Chen was astonished. This was one of Qingyan Peak's secret techniques, clear wind chop. Shua. When the small saber reappeared, one of the corpse's arms was chopped off. After it lost an arm, its combat prowess decreased significantly. Just when Xiao Chen thought there was nothing left to fear, the corpse suddenly spat out a black pearl. Ye Wen's complexion changed. It actually managed to cultivate an inner core. Good thing I discovered it early. Otherwise, if it had developed spiritual intelligence, it would be problematic. The small saber was pulled backward and 18 copies appeared in the air. Ye Wen's figure was everywhere within an instant. When the 18 images merged back together, the bright lights of the saber became reserved. It carried a huge force as it chopped that black pearl into half with a shua sound. Ye Wen's hands moved continuously, the small saber started to spin intensely and created a powerful cyclone. Go! The small saber left his hand and the cyclone instantly enveloped the corpse as it moved forward. The saber moved very fast within the cyclone as streams of black fluid spurted out but were dispersed by the cyclone. Under Ye Wen's control, the cyclone moved forward very slowly. After a while, it stopped and a small saber embedded itself into the ground with a huang dang sound. The corpse landed heavily on the ground with a loud bang before it bounced a few times. Its skin was no longer completely intact, it was pretty much left with only its skeleton. Just as everyone thought the situation was resolved and let out a breath of relief, the corpse leapt back up onto its feet. It moved as fast as lightning as it rushed at Mu Shinya, who was beside Xiao Chen. As the situation had occurred suddenly, Mu Shinya was caught off guard and could not react in time. Her complexion changed greatly. Drawing the saber. In the time it took for a spark to fly, the lunar shadow saber was drawn with a huang dang sound. It created a blade of wind and its speed was almost at its peak. It chopped the corpse, flying at them into two halves. Ye Wen quickly rushed over and fired out two streams of red flames to burn the corpse up. Afterwards, he turned around to pick up the medial grade spirit stone raw ore, revealing a faint smile as he did so. It was rare to come by a medial grade spirit stone raw ore. Normally, they would only run into one every few months. Ye Wen felt it was worthwhile to be able to obtain the ore at the cost of the life of only one person. Ye Wen waved his hands and smiled. Supervisor Lee, you gained a big merit. Let me introduce you. These two are the newly arrived guardians. If there are any problems, you may look for them. A tall and stout man walked over. This person was the supervisor of this group of miners. Ye Wen introduced Xiao Chen and Mu Shinya, then he casually passed the medial grade spirit stone raw ore to Supervisor Lee. After that, he led Xiao Chen and Mu Shinya to continue walking. Along the way he introduced, when running into the corpses at the medial grade spirit stone raw ores, do not recklessly make a move. The two of you are not a match for them. Xiao Chen could not resist asking, where did this corpse come from? Why is it so horrifying? Ye Wen said indifferently, it crawled over. Your current location is thousands of meters beneath the surface. This spirit mine has existed for several 10,000s of years. The corpses that were buried underground would slowly crawl over under the attraction of the spiritual energy. After several months, it would turn into that thing. There is usually such creatures around every piece of medial grade spirit stone raw ore. The three of them spoke as they walked. They ran into several groups of miners digging, but they did not run into another medial grade spirit stone raw ore being dug up again. Occasionally, they would run into some other corpses, but they did not have much combat prowess. They were chopped into half with a single strike from Ye Wen. Aside from the corpses, the three of them also ran into a creature that was even stranger. It was a spirit-swallowing worm that treated spirit stone raw ores as food. Ye Wen chopped off the head of a spirit-swallowing worm and said, the corpses are nothing, they are not really much of a problem. The biggest enemy in the spirit mine is the spirit-swallowing worm. If you discover one, you need to destroy it as quickly as you can. If it manages to dig into the ground, it would be problematic. Every spirit-swallowing worm you kill will earn you another 5 contribution points. Xiao Chen grasped his lunar shadow saber and used it to push the body of the spirit-swallowing worm over to inspect it carefully. This worm was half a meter long and was about as thick as an adult's arm. It could spit out a green toxic fluid to attack its enemies. It had very fast reactions. If Ye Wen's earlier attacks were not fast enough, the worm would have escaped into the ground. If that happened, the result would be that Ye Wen would not be able to do anything against it. As the three of them spoke, they reached a place where the tunnel split into 3 different paths. Ye Wen pointed to a path and showed them the map. Within the mines, the tunnels without any lamps would be indicated as black on the map. This tunnel is already all mined out. There is no need to go in. The two of them nodded. Ye Wen led the two of them to continue walking forwards. After they completed a round in the tunnels, he finally brought them to the headquarters of this layer. Even though it was the headquarters, it was very simple as it was thousands of meters underground. It was a large stone room that had many spirit stone raw ores arranged by their grades. There were at least 10 superior Grand Marshal Saints that guarded this place. When these people saw Ye Wen come over, he quickly greeted him respectfully. "Elder Yi, everything is normal, there has been no problems." Ye Wen nodded and pointed to Xiao Chen and Mu Shinya. "These are the new guards sent down from above. Check them for any spatial rings." There was a reason why a super large sect like them could be passed down for 10,000 years. It was because they controlled a spirit mine. Any news about the spirit mine was considered as the most important secrets of the sect. Even after such a long time, Xiao Chen did not even know the location of the spirit mine. What made him even more speechless was they did not even know where the exit of this spirit mine was. If anything happened, it might be possible for the two of them to be stuck here and die. Xiao Chen did not expect them to be careful to the point of checking if they had any spatial rings. Immediately, one man and one woman walked over and started to check their bodies. Xiao Chen felt a little bit of panic. There were many valuable things in his universe ring, there were even things that could not be seen by others. There were spirit weapons, medicinal pills, and herbs from the Zhang clan that he had not managed yet. If he were to hand the ring over, he would be worried. "Junior brother, please remove the ring on your hand. Let me take a look." The person that searched Xiao Chen did not find anything in other places, so he could only feel suspicious about the ring on his hand. Xiao Chen smiled embarrassedly. At this point of time, if he reacted to that, it would cause him to look even more suspicious. He took the initiative to remove the ring on his own accord and handed it to him. The spatial rings of this world were made of a material called receiving stone. It was made by forging this material and was completely different from the materials that Xiao Chen's universe ring was crafted from. That person looked at it for a long time but was unable to make out anything wrong with it. He could only return the ring to Xiao Chen. "Wait for a bit, let me take a look at this ring first." Just as Xiao Chen was about to feel relieved, Ye Wen's gaze drifted over and he quickly said, "Logically speaking, it was impossible for others to open the universe ring. However, there were no absolutes in this world." Xiao Chen felt uncertain in his heart. He said, "Marshal Uncle Yi, is there something wrong with this ring?" Ye Wen tossed over the ring gently and smiled to Xiao Chen. "There is no problem, just pay attention to yourself." What does he mean by pay attention to myself? Xiao Chen thought. Ye Wen seemed to have given him a deep look, like a warning. "Let's go. Grab a good sleep tonight. That's right, there is still a very important thing I have not told you to yet. Do not cultivate here. Otherwise, if you are not careful, you might explode and die. There has been many previous instances of this already. I hope the two of you will not simply mess around," Ye Wen prudently warned them. "This means I cannot cultivate for a month." Xiao Chen could not help but feel disappointed. He was initially filled with anticipation when he first arrived and saw the dense spiritual energy in his surroundings. The two of them spoke as they returned to their stone room. When Mu Shinya saw that Ye Wen was not around, she said, "Senior brother Yi, thank you for saving me earlier." Xiao Chen smiled. "It's nothing, just helping each other out. Who knows when I would need you to rescue me." When they returned to their stone room, Xiao Chen let Mu Shinya choose her bed first. Afterwards, he slowly laid down on the other stone bed. The stone room was rather large, so they did not feel constrained even when two people stayed there together. The walls were inlaid with night pearl, so it felt quite bright. Xiao Chen laid on the bed. He still had not figured out the outline of this place yet. Leaving his escape path in the hands of others was very unsettling. He turned his spiritual sense into a thread and extended it upward. The results were as Ye Wen had said, it was really several thousands of meters underground. Xiao Chen's spiritual sense was able to extend upward for close to 2,000 meters. However, aside from seeing a few other layers of the mine, he did not know how far he was from the surface. Xiao Chen withdrew his spiritual sense and could not help but think to himself, where exactly is the exit? Xiao Chen did not give up and used his spiritual sense to scan the entire layer. Finally, he focused on the area where the headquarters was located. However, he was blocked by a formless barrier. He could not go through it no matter how he tried. After failing a few times, Xiao Chen could only give up helplessly. There was a simple hourglass being used to keep time. He took a look at it. According to the time on Earth, it would be about 7 in evening. It was still early. Although he could not cultivate, Xiao Chen did not have the habit of sleeping early. He took out the clear wind chop manual that Lu Ruyu had given him and started to read it carefully. The impression that Ye Wen's clear wind chop had given Xiao Chen was quite deep. Senior brother Yi, I have finished my bath. You can take yours now. When another stone in the stone room was pushed open, there was a simple bathroom. There was a pool of groundwater there. There was no need to worry about their cleanliness. After Mu Shinya came out from the bathroom, she immediately informed Xiao Chen. The clothes she wore were all arranged neatly and properly without making it look erotic. It was not enough for Xiao Chen to feel awkward. Xiao Chen put down the manual and nodded. He was not too obsessed with cleanliness. As such, after he entered, he cleaned himself up in a simple manner and quickly came out after wearing his clothes. Mu Shinya had a more lively personality. When she saw Xiao Chen reading, she kept asking him questions non-stop. The smile on her face never faded at all. She was quite optimistic about this mission. Senior brother Yi, why did you enter Heavenly Saber Pavilion initially? Furthermore, you entered into the weakest Qingyan Peak. Mu Shinya asked questions after questions. It was simply never-ending. The result was that Xiao Chen could not focus. He could only smile bitterly and put down his book helplessly. After he thought for a while, he answered, initially, I entered in order to save a friend. Then I realized that I could raise my strength here. So I stayed. A mischievous smile appeared on Mu Shinya's face. Let me guess. Your friend must be a girl. It can be considered to be so. Xiao Chen smiled and changed the topic. What about you? Why did you enter the Heavenly Saber Pavilion? Mu Shinya changed her position on the bed and leaned against the wall. My parents told me to enter. I have been here for a month. Actually, I did not want to enter. Xiao Chen felt it was strange. Before she had entered, she was already a peak martial Grand Master. It seems like Mu Shinya's clan was not simple. After she answered the question, Mu Shinya's mood seemed to turn heavy. She was not as spirited as she was earlier. After they chatted for a while more, she went to sleep. Xiao Chen could not sleep, so he continued to read the Clear Wind Chop manual. The essence in his body slowly circulated in the manner described by the manual. He immediately felt a strong energy circulating. Unfortunately, there was no suitable place for him to practice. Xiao Chen tested it for a bit but soon gave up. After it got late into the night, his eyelids started to droop and he fell asleep after going into a daze. The next morning, Xiao Chen woke up on time. The sound of him getting up startled Mu Shinya awake. After the two of them washed up and had some food, they started to do their patrols in accordance with the path Ye Wen showed them. Not long after they left, Xiao Chen saw the group of miners who found the medial grade spirit stone raw ore yesterday. When Supervisor Lee, who led the miners, saw the two of them, he quickly put down what he was doing. He came over and greeted them. Greetings, sir and madam. Do you have any instructions for us? Xiao Chen sized this person up carefully. He was about 2 meters in height. Xiao Chen looked favorably at him. The thing that Xiao Chen noticed was his eyes. The other miners had dull looks in their eyes, like they'd given up hope. However, his eyes were filled with light and there were no signs of him being dispirited. If it were not for his clothes being dirty, one would not think of him as a miner. Nothing much, we are just on our patrol. If there are any problem, immediately send a signal out. Xiao Chen nodded and left with Mu Shinya. Patrolling was a very boring job, especially thousands of meters underground. Xiao Chen finally understood why there were so little people signing up for this job. No one would choose to come back to this hellish environment a second time unless they were urgently in need of contribution points. The spirit mine was not as peaceful as it seemed to be. After yesterday's experience, Xiao Chen did not dare to be careless. He cautiously followed the map as he walked around the mines. Hu Kai. Suddenly, there was a sharp call from a bugle horn that rang piercingly in the tunnels. Xiao Chen and Mu Shinya exchanged a look. There was a situation. They quickly rushed in the direction of the sound's origin. The two of them were very fast. Soon, they arrived at the location where the sound originated from. They discovered a corpse slowly climbing out from the ground. The miners were running in every direction. Xiao Chen said to Mu Shinya, "Gather these people up. Don't run around. It is only an ordinary corpse, I will deal with it." Mu Shinya asked worriedly, "Are you able to?" "Even if I can't, I have to." After Xiao Chen spoke, he immediately rushed forward and knocked over the corpse that had just climbed out. This was the first time Xiao Chen had faced this disgusting creature. As such, he did not dare to be careless. He carefully blocked the attacks of the corpse. Slowly, he started to sense that the attacking methods of the corpse were limited. It relied on its speed and sharp claws to attack. This should be the lowest grade of corpses. Soon, Xiao Chen completely grasped its attack patterns. Xiao Chen did not wish to drag out the fight, so he used the 3 flowing cloud images. His figure immediately turned blurry. He moved in a circle around the corpse like a small river and sent out 3 saber strikes at it. Shua, shua, shua. The corpse's 2 arms and head were instantly separated from its body and it spurted out lots of black fluids. Xiao Chen knew about the terror of this fluid, so he sent out a saber light to block them from coming into contact with his body. The corpse, which lost its arms and head, did not die yet. It did what it could to rush wildly at Xiao Chen, but it was no longer a threat. Xiao Chen executed drawing the saber and split it into half. It should now be dead as a doorknob. Xiao Chen placed his saber back in the scabbard and spoke to the group of miners that Mu Shinya had rounded up. "Who is the supervisor?" A miner walked out while bowing. He said, in reply to "Sir, I am the supervisor here." This person's face was completely black, his eyes had lost its light, like he had lost all hope. Xiao Chen sighed. "Go deal with the body. According to the rules, you may rest for 2 hours. I will not make things difficult." This was the instruction given by Ye Wen. If a corpse appeared, the group of miners may rest for 2 hours, then they should return to work. There was no need to bother about them. The two of them hung around for a while longer. When they saw that nothing else happened, they left the place and continued their patrol. Soon, they reached a place where the path divided into 3. However, 2 of the paths did not have any lamps installed. It was pitch dark. According to the rules, this was a dead path, there was no need to patrol there. As they were preparing to leave, Xiao Chen suddenly noticed a pair of green eyes in one of the tunnels. However, when he tried to look carefully again, he did not discover anything. He extended out his spiritual sense. However, after searching for a long time, he did not discover anything. "Senior brother Yi, what's wrong?" Mu Shinya asked, her voice filled with doubts. Xiao Chen felt that something was wrong. "Don't move, I'm going in to take a look. There seems to be something in there." Mu Shinya looked in the direction of Xiao Chen's gaze. "Isn't that a dead path? I'll come with you." "There is no need, I could have been seeing things." After Xiao Chen spoke, he directly entered in a flash. There was a faint purple light coming from his eyes in the darkness. He was able to see about 10 meters around him within the pitch-dark tunnel. Xiao Chen walked in for about 200 meters but he did not discover anything. As he was prepared to leave, he heard the sound of footsteps coming from behind him. However, it was only Mu Shinya following him. "Let's go, there is no need to follow me. I saw wrongly," Xiao Chen said to Mu Shinya who was behind him. However, the instant he turned around, he saw an unsightly expression on Mu Shinya's face. She quickly drew her Yuanyang sabers and a cold light flashed in the tunnel. The Yuanyang saber in her left hand buzzed with a melodious sound as it flew through the air, flying toward Xiao Chen's head at lightning speed. Yuanyang sabers were frequently used by women as it was slightly shorter. Most men would not use it as it did not seem tyrannical. However, just based on appearance, it was pretty suitable for the graceful characteristics of a woman. However, in truth, the Yuanyang saber's might and power were not inferior. Xiao Chen followed the buzzing saber with his eyes and watched as the darkness swallowed up the Yuanyang saber gleaming with a cold light. His thoughts stopped for a short moment but he moved after that. He trusted Mu Shinya and did not make a move to attack her. Xiao Chen executed the Azure Dragon Cloud Soaring art and his body moved as fast as a flood dragon and he arrived behind Mu Shinya in an instant. Who? There was a boom as the Yuanyang saber stuck itself into the ceiling of the tunnel. Xiao Chen vaguely saw a blurry figure that quickly dived into the hole in the wall. Spirit swallowing bug. Xiao Chen instantly understood what was going on. He did not see wrongly. The green eyes he saw were the eyes of the spirit-swallowing bug. When he came in, it craftily dove into a hole in the wall. When he turned around, it showed itself, wanting to sneak attack him. Coincidentally, Mu Shinya saw the situation and immediately attacked. She did not have the time to explain. She wanted to rescue Xiao Chen, who did not know what was going on. Mu Shinya held the other Yuanyang saber in her right hand and pulled it back slightly. There was an invisible ripple in the air that spread through the air. The other Yuanyang saber stuck in the ceiling trembled and flew back into Mu Shinya's hand. "Senior brother Yi, are you alright?" Mu Shinya asked Xiao Chen worriedly. Xiao Chen checked his body and discovered that some green fluids had permeated through his clothes. The fluids entered his body slowly via the pores on his skin before it rapidly mixed with his blood. The blood that was mixed with the green toxic fluid flowed in his body. Before long, Xiao Chen felt dizzy. This was a sign of being poisoned. Xiao Chen quickly took out the detoxification pill from the universe ring. Then he sat down cross-legged and circulated his essence to quickly spread out the medicinal energy of the pill. Xiao Chen had not expected that the detoxification pill he brought on a whim would be so useful here. The medicinal pill quickly dissolved and separated the green fluid from his blood. After a while, Xiao Chen could taste something sweet in his mouth. He immediately spat out a green liquid. Xiao Chen opened his eyes and instantly felt better. The dizzy feeling he felt earlier had vanished. The venom of the spirit-swallowing bug was really tyrannical. Just coming into contact with a small amount had such serious consequences. If he had not prepared the detoxification pill in advance, he could have died here. Xiao Chen got up and saw that Mu Shinya had an extremely worried expression on her face. He smiled and said, "I am fine. I have forced the venom out already. Thank you." Mu Shinya smiled when she heard Xiao Chen's words. She then said, "It's nothing. Let's go then. Who knows when that worm would come out again." Xiao Chen shook his head. "This is 5 contribution points here. Furthermore, it injured me. How could I simply let it go like this?" Since Xiao Chen knew there was a spirit-swallowing worm here, he naturally would not let it go. As long as he was cautious and did not get sneak attacked, it would not be much of a problem. The spirit-swallowing worm was about as strong as a martial grand master. Xiao Chen extended out his spiritual sense and sent it into the soil of the tunnel. His spiritual sense followed the traces of qi the spirit swallowing worm had left behind and chased after it. This sneaky fellow. To think it was nearby. His spiritual sense turned around and came back. Xiao Chen looked at the hole above his head and he could not help but exclaim in his mind, the spirit swallowing worm is actually hiding right above us. Bang! Xiao Chen's feet pushed off the ground and he drew the lunar shadow saber from its scabbard. The saber blade glowed with an electric light, brightening up the pitch-dark tunnel. Pu Si. The resplendent lunar shadow saber stabbed into the ceiling with a shua sound. A zzz sound could be heard. It was the miserable cries of the spirit swallowing worm. A green fluid poured out of the worm. Xiao Chen knew the terror of this fluid. He sent some essence to the blade and made it tremble. He immediately flung off all the venomous fluid. In the next moment, he could feel a creature wriggling quickly on the blade. Want to run? Too late. Xiao Chen laughed coldly as his essence exploded out and blasted apart the ceiling above his head instantly. The spirit swallowing worm fell down together with the rocks. There was a rumble in the tunnel as the rocks fell continuously. The two of them moved around to avoid the falling rocks. After it became peaceful again, they started to chase after the spirit swallowing worm that dragged its damaged body along the ground. When it fell on the ground, this spirit swallowing worm had practically lost half of its combat prowess. In addition to the damage Xiao Chen dealt to it, this spirit swallowing worm was hacked into pieces after a while. These 5 contribution points were in the bag. Mu Shinya was confused, so she asked, Senior Brother Yi, how did you find it? Naturally, Xiao Chen could not tell Mu Shinya the real reason. As such, he made up a reason. Xiao Chen dug out the inner core from the body of the spirit swallowing worm. Because it ate spirit stone raw ores for a long time, the surface of its inner core was incredibly smooth. The spiritual energy contained within was comparable to a rank 5 spirit beast. Xiao Chen put away the spirit swallowing worm's inner core carefully and smiled. We obtained 5 contribution points. We will split it in half. Mu Shinya smiled gently. We can just split it 3-2 in your favor. Contribution points are not useful to me. Contribution points are not useful to you. Xiao Chen looked at Mu Shinya in confusion. If contribution points were useless, then why did you take up such a mission? Mu Shinya seemed to have realized that she had said something wrong. She smiled and said, Don't misunderstand. I meant a few contribution points would not make a difference to me. You were the one who discovered the spirit swallowing worm. 2 contribution points are sufficient to me. So that was what she meant. Xiao Chen smiled and did not continue to pursue the matter. The two of them left the tunnel and continued to patrol the path indicated by the map. It was very calm after this and there were no more major events. Along the way, they discovered a few spirit swallowing worm. Unfortunately, they were too quick-witted and dove into the ground to flee far away. When it became night, the miners rested. Xiao Chen and Mu Shinya's job also ended. Xiao Chen made his way to Ye Wen and reported the events of the day. After he handed in the spirit swallowing worm's inner core to Ye Wen and recorded it, he could redeem the contribution points in the Hall of Contributions. Nothing happened along the way back. Xiao Chen thought that there was no rush to go back to the stone room to rest. In one of the dead passages, Xiao Chen found a spacious area and drew the lunar shadow saber to practice his saber techniques. Although he could not absorb any spiritual energy to cultivate, he could still practice his saber techniques. He could not afford to fall behind on this either. Initially, he practiced the 8 basic movements of sabers for 2 hours. This re-stabilized the basic saber techniques he had practiced to the small perfection already. Afterwards, he started to practice the rushing thunder saber technique, 3 flowing cloud images, and other saber techniques once. After 4 hours, Xiao Chen finished his warm-up. He rested for a while before he started to practice the clear wind chop. He had already memorized the clear wind chop's circulation method in his heart last night. Xiao Chen slowly executed the clear wind chop. The saber danced in the air and instantly created a cool breeze. The saber moved amongst the cool breeze and danced everywhere. Xiao Chen practiced tirelessly and executed the clear wind chop hundreds of times. He exhausted all the essence in his body. However, he was still unable to find the trick to it. Not to mention being able to hide the saber within the cool breeze like Lu Ruyu and Ye Wen did, he could not even hide his killing intent, he was only able to create a cool breeze. He was not able to attain the state of seeing only the clear wind but not the saber. Xiao Chen sat on the ground and thought about the principles behind the technique. As the saying goes, the master leads you to the door, the rest is up to you. This principle applies here. Lu Ruyu could only tell him of the essence behind the clear wind chop to prevent him from walking down the wrong path. However, it depended entirely on Xiao Chen to comprehend. Even if others told him of their comprehensions and allowed him to reach the small perfection, if he did not comprehend it for himself, he would not be able to master it. He would never be able to practice it to the great perfection. Since he did not dare to absorb the surrounding spiritual energy, Xiao Chen took out an inferior grade spirit stone from the universe ring. Xiao Chen absorbed the energy from the spirit stone and his essence was instantly refilled. Xiao Chen got up and practiced the clear wind chop again. There was a cool breeze that blew in the tunnel. As Xiao Chen got faster and faster, the wind blew even stronger. Xiao Chen remained calm within the strong wind. Suddenly, inspiration struck. He executed the Azure Dragon Cloud Soaring art. He soared up like a flood dragon in the raging wind. The clear wind chop was originally a standalone secret technique, it did not come with an accompanying movement technique. When one executed the technique, they completely relied on their own ability to adapt, the technique was unable to be used while moving at a fast speed. However, his Azure Dragon Cloud Soaring art was surprisingly compatible with the clear wind chop. Despite it being only his first time trying it out, Xiao Chen was able to successfully execute the clear wind chop in the air. Xiao Chen was happy, it was like he had discovered a new land. He executed the clear wind chop as he retreated backward, as he was in the middle of a somersault, as he was spinning. In a short moment, he executed the clear wind chop from all sorts of different positions and angles. Using the clear wind chop at the same time as the secret technique exhausted much more essence that he had initially imagined. This time, Xiao Chen was only able to execute the clear wind chop 20-odd times before he ran out of essence. Since the clear wind chop was still not at the small perfection, he was unable to hide his killing intent. However, Xiao Chen was not too disappointed as he discovered he could use it together with the Azure Dragon Cloud Soaring art. Xiao Chen did not continue to practice after he rested for a while. Simply practice without thought would not result in any progress even if he practiced for 100 years. Furthermore, the environment in the tunnel was not suitable for training. Relying on spirit stones to replenish his essence would weaken his sensitivity to spiritual energy. Hiding his killing intent was the first step to the execution of the clear wind chop. Xiao Chen pondered about this problem. How could he hide his killing intent amongst the indiscernible clear wind? When Xiao Chen returned to the stone room, he was surprised to discover that Mu Shinya was not lying on the stone bed. Could she have gone to practice her saber like I did? It is so late already, why is she not back yet? Xiao Chen had a lot of questions in his head and he could not be bothered with all these. He should just mind his own business. Xiao Chen entered the bathroom and comfortably soaked himself in the pool of water for a long time before he came out. The next morning, when Xiao Chen woke up, he discovered that Mu Shinya had already washed up and was ready. She was waiting for him to start their patrol. Senior brother Yi, where did you go last night? I did not see you come back after a long time. Mu Shinya smiled at Xiao Chen as they left. When Xiao Chen heard this, he was stunned. He did not expect Mu Shinya to initiate this topic. He smiled and said, I am not used to sleeping so early, so I went out to practice the saber. Shinya smiled and said, let's go. Then I would be able to see the martial technique you have been practicing so hard when we fight alongside each other today. Xiao Chen simply smiled without speaking. Next, they started their dry and boring patrol again. The two of them had already finished their patrol once yesterday. This time, they were already familiar with the way. They were not as unfamiliar as they were yesterday. The first batch of miners they met were led by Supervisor Lee like before. When Supervisor Lee saw the two of them arriving, he quickly came and greeted them politely. Xiao Chen waved his hand to indicate to him to dispense with the formalities. After staying there for a while, they did not find anything of note. Then the two of them started to head towards another group of miners. Along the way, they did not dare to be careless. If there was any mishap and they got spat on by a spirit-swallowing worm, they would be in trouble. The morning passed in similar fashion, and the tunnel was frighteningly calm. The 8th layers of tunnels were much smaller than Xiao Chen had initially imagined. The dense lines on the map gave off a menacing appearance, but most of them were actually dead tunnels. They had few places to patrol. In hindsight, this was probably why they only needed 2 people to patrol this layer. In fact, in Xiao Chen's opinion, there would not be much of a problem even if the 2 of them were not here. They only needed to send 2 of the 10 martial saints standing guard in the headquarters to do the job. They would be able to easily deal with their work. The 2 of them managed to complete their patrol before noon. Following that, they took out their dry rations and took a break. Shinya was a chatterbox, talking without end. Right as they sat down, she asked, Senior Brother Yi, do you think there is a pattern to the appearance of the spirit-swallowing worms? The 2 of them had discovered some spirit-swallowing worms after completing their patrol earlier. The worms quickly fled before they could make a move, leaving them with no choice than to give up their pursuit. Xiao Chen had not noticed any pattern at all. He could not help but ask, did you notice any? Shinya laughed out loud and said, this lady is very perceptive. Of course I noticed one. Where do we normally discover the spirit-swallowing worms? Is it the places with mining going on or places without? Xiao Chen's eyes lit up, as though he had connected something in his brain. From what it seemed like, they never encountered a spirit-swallowing worm in areas where the workers were mining. The spirit-swallowing worms were not like the corpses. When those corpses came out, they moved quite slowly, allowing the miners some time to run and seek help. When the worms attacked, they would spit out a few mouthfuls of venomous fluids and kill these miners easily. It seemed like nothing like this had happened with the spirit-swallowing worms before. However, what did this have to do with the pattern of the spirit-swallowing worms' appearance? Shinya sported a cocky smile as she said, have you figured it out? Seeing that your face is filled with doubts, you probably have not figured out the key point yet. Let me tell you then, the spirit-swallowing worm naturally relies on raw ores of spirit stone to survive. You have not seen it before, so I can only describe it as your resting time being different from theirs. Xiao Chen suddenly felt enlightened, and he immediately understood the most important point. He said, the both of us rest when the miners are also resting. That is to say, when we are resting, the spirit-swallowing worms are active. Shinya nodded, actually, you can look at this from another angle. After the spirit-swallowing worms start resting, we and the miners come out to do our work. When the spirit-swallowing worms become active, we start our rest. Shinya's words were only flipping Xiao Chen's words upside down. It may seem to mean the same thing, but when examined carefully the emphasis was different. Xiao Chen was not a fool. He quickly figured out the most important part. The time when the miners and us are at work is not something that is decided casually. Instead, it is the people in charge who decided this using the timing of the spirit-swallowing worm's activity. It was done so that we could avoid the spirit-swallowing worm's active hours. However, what is the point of this? The spirit-swallowing worms are not strong. If we could gather them together and deal with them all in one go, wouldn't that be better? Ye Wen once said the greatest enemy in the mines were not the corpses. Instead, it was the spirit-swallowing worms that ate the raw ores of spirit stone. Could it be that Ye Wen was lying then? Xiao Chen thought, could these small spirit-swallowing worms be hiding something? Mu Shinya leaned over in a bizarre manner and said, Senior Brother Yi, how about we go out tonight and earn some contribution points? I can guarantee that we can obtain at least 100 points. All we need is one night of time. This should be the reason why Mu Shinya came back so late last night. Xiao Chen felt excited at the prospect of her suggestion. However, he soon rejected the idea. He said, these are only your guesses. Don't speak of this again without any evidence. But seeing that Xiao Chen did not believe her, Mu Shinya's cute face turned anxious. Xiao Chen interrupted her, don't say, but just complete this 1 month peacefully. I keep feeling it is not safe here. It is best to not get distracted and avoid getting involved in more problems. Hu Kai. A piercing alarm went off from the mines. The two of their complexions changed. They quickly ended their conversation and rushed towards the origin of the alarm. Before long, they ran into the fleeing miners. These miners were running with an unsteady gait in panic. It was incredibly strange. Xiao Chen was surprised, as the low-grade corpses should not be very powerful. To think it actually scared the miners to this degree. He quickly looked for the supervisor to question him. The supervisor said with a pale face, Sir and Madam, run quickly. I am not sure what we dug out this time. 2 mutated corpses appeared at the same time. Half our members died. 2 mutated corpses. Xiao Chen frowned deeply and fell deep in thought. The so-called mutated corpse was the one that Ye Wen had spent a lot of effort to kill the other day. To think 2 appeared at the same time today. What in the world did they dig out to attract 2 at the same time? Could it be a raw ore of superior grade spirit stones? Regardless of what they had found, he had to go check out the situation first. He could not simply just take these people's word for it. It was best to ignore these miners first. Given that such a big thing had happened, it was not realistic to expect them to continue mining. Xiao Chen took out the map and obtained the exact location first before leading Mu Shinya over. They quickly rushed over. As they did so, he extended his spiritual sense outwards with all he had. It covered a radius of around 200 meters around him. Stop. The rapidly advancing Xiao Chen suddenly stretched out his hand to signal for Mu Shinya to stop. He took out the map and checked how far away they were. He determined their distance to be only 600 meters away. 600 meters. To a martial saint, it would only require a few breaths of time. The strength of the mutated corpse was conservatively estimated to be about that of an inferior grade martial saint. Xiao Chen did not dare to be careless. If he rushed in recklessly, he might accidentally lose his life. Xiao Chen turned his spiritual sense into a thin thread and extended it forward slowly. After a while, Xiao Chen could see the scene of the incident. The area was in complete disorder, and the corpses of miners were strewn about. Their hearts had all been gouged out from their chests. The ground was covered in blood. Xiao Chen's spiritual sense circled around, but he could not find the whereabouts of the 2 mutated corpses. That's strange. Where did the man-eating corpses go? Xiao Chen thought with suspicion. He used his spiritual sense to search the surroundings carefully, but he had yet to find them. After repeatedly double-checking, Xiao Chen felt secure enough to bring Mu Shinya with him to the location of the object the miners claimed to have dug up. This was the first time she had seen so many miners expire. Mu Shinya revealed an unsightly expression on her face at the sight. Xiao Chen patted her on the shoulder when he saw her reaction. He consoled her, don't overthink it. This is unavoidable. Before they came here, they signed a life or death contract. If they die, their family will receive a large compensation. To them, there is no regret doing this. From the moment they signed the life or death contract, They had already put their lives on the line. Mu Shinya's expression remained a rictus of horror, but she eventually forced herself to smile. I know. Let's quickly find the thing they dug up. The two of them started searching every nook and cranny. Before their arrival to the scene, Xiao Chen had already used his spiritual sense to sweep through the area many times, but he came up with nothing. Now that he was here in person, he launched a more thorough search. However, he was still unable to find it. Could the supervisor have been lying? Or did the two corpses dig out that thing after killing the miners? Comparing the two options, Xiao Chen was rather convinced of the former. Because if the latter was true, then it meant that these two mutated corpses had already developed an elementary amount of spiritual intelligence. If that was true, then this was an extremely horrifying thing. Compared to a corpse that fought solely on instinct, a corpse with spiritual intelligence was far stronger and much harder to deal with. If these two corpses continued hiding for a long time and cultivated within this mine in the interim, they might progress their cultivation to a terrifying degree, evolving into something like a corpse king. Xiao Chen shivered just thinking about it. Stop looking for it, it is clear the two corpses have taken the thing away, Xiao Chen said slowly. Although he prayed for the otherwise, given the situation, the truth was obvious. It was impossible for the supervisor to have lied to him, because he had no way to get out of this mine layer. If the supervisor did lie to him, he would be immediately punished once it was discovered. He would only do so if he was tired of living. After Xiao Chen spoke, he quickly led Mu Shinya over to the headquarters. Given such a big thing had happened, it would no longer be something the two of them could solve. They saw Ye Wen in the headquarters. Xiao Chen informed Ye Wen of the events that happened in detail. Ye Wen frowned heavily and said, "Where did the surviving miners go to?" Xiao Chen answered, "Given that such a major incident has happened, I let them go have a rest. Go to the common dormitories and bring the supervisors here to meet me." Ye Wen turned around and instructed a person. Then he said to the two of them, "Accompany me to the scene of the incident." Running back and forth was something anyone would be displeased at repeatedly doing. However, Xiao Chen could only endure. They brought Ye Wen to the scene of the incident. After they arrived, Ye Wen started inspecting the place quietly. After a while, the person Ye Wen instructed to fetch the supervisors ran over anxiously. "Elder Yi, I did not find this group of people in the common dormitories. Furthermore, the miners who were resting today have not seen them, and the miners in the other areas have not seen anyone either. I even searched around myself and could not find them. This group of people seems to have vanished." Xiao Chen was shocked. He said in a hoarse voice, "How could it be? How could they have vanished? Mu Shinya and I clearly saw them earlier. Furthermore, it was a large group of miners," Xiao Chen thought to himself, deeply suspicious. Mu Shinya at the side also found it strange. "That is impossible, we saw at least 20 miners. Furthermore, the supervisor even spoke to us. How did they disappear?" Ye Wen muttered to himself for a while before saying, "I will send someone to investigate. You two continue patrolling." Xiao Chen was frightened out of his mind the entire afternoon. He could not understand how the group of miners vanished. How could such a large group of living humans disappear without a trace? Furthermore, these people had an alarm with them. If they met with danger, they would sound the alarm the moment they could. It would be heard throughout the mine layer. Mu Shinya also felt it was strange. "Senior brother Yi, what do you think is going on? It is extremely queer." Xiao Chen smiled. "Even such an intelligent person like yourself cannot figure it out. How would I know?" Hearing what Xiao Chen said, Mu Shinya revealed a smile. "Actually, I have an idea. It is definitely impossible for these people to disappear. There are so many dead tunnels in the mines where it is impossible for people to see their fingers when they stretch their hand out. All they have to do is to hide in one of these dead tunnels. It would be difficult for people to find them." Xiao Chen shook his head and retorted, "That is impossible. Why would these people be hiding? They are all ordinary people. Without our protection, they have no chance at living. Even if there is no danger, they will starve to death. Shinya said, then where do you think they went? They couldn't all have hidden themselves in the ground. Xiao Chen would temporarily set aside things he could not figure out. This was how Xiao Chen had done things all the while. Since he could not do anything about it, he could not be bothered to think about it. Don't bother yourself with it, we will leave it to Marshal Uncle Yi and the others to deal with it. We should be more careful. We should just muddle along for this 1 month, then leave. Xiao Chen now felt a little regret for accepting the mission. The minds became very strange. The unsettling feeling in his heart turned even more intense. Xiao Chen only wanted to leave this place as soon as possible. The next week was comparatively calm. There was no conclusion to the end of that day's incidents. The people Ye Wen sent out did not discover the group of missing people despite looking for a long time. During the day, Xiao Chen and Shinya continued their patrols. Occasionally, they would meet some corpses. It was now easy for the two of them to deal with it, their coordination was getting better. On a particular night, Xiao Chen continued to practice his saber technique in a spacious area of the tunnel. He took out a few night pearls from the universe ring and placed them around the surroundings. The pitch-dark tunnel immediately turned bright. These night pearls were taken from the Zhang clan's secret treasury in the past. While he was tidying up the universe ring the day before, he found them. Coincidentally, it would be good to place them here. The bright space was much better than the pitch-dark tunnel it was before. Like before, Xiao Chen practiced the 8 basic movements of the saber first. He could not afford to let his basic saber techniques lag behind. Then he would practice all the martial techniques he knew, one by one. The rushing thunder saber technique, dragon seizing hand, flight on wings, astral swordplay. Regardless of whether he learned it by himself or imitated it by using the battle sage origins, he would practice them all. Only when he completely exhausted all his essence, he would stop and rest for a while. Then, he would take out an inferior grade spirit stone from the universe ring and drain it completely, recovering his essence. After all this, Xiao Chen would get up and start practicing the clear wind chop. He spent most of his time practicing the clear wind chop. The Azure Dragon Cloud soaring art was extremely compatible with the clear wind chop. He was able to move around a like dragon in the air and execute the clear wind chop from any position or angle he wanted. However, no matter how much he practiced, Xiao Chen was unable to hide his killing intent. The instant the lunar shadow saber was drawn, his killing intent would surge out. There was no way to control it. Xiao Chen leaned helplessly against the wall of the tunnels, pondering the problem of his killing intent. The so-called killing intent referred to a tyrannical chi that formed automatically after a cultivation had killed a certain amount of people. Normally, when these people locked gazes with others, their killing intent could automatically surge out. It would cause the other to feel fear in their heart, resulting in them not being able to concentrate. Furthermore, there were some terrifying people who could control their killing intent freely. They could condense their vast killing intent into a thread. They could even turn it into a saber or spear and pierce a person's mind, injuring their spirit and instantly causing them to lose their combat prowess. However, such a state could only be achieved by those who practiced the way of killing. People like Lu Ruyu and Ye Wen clearly did not practice the way of killing. So how did they do it? Xiao Chen slowly rose up and placed the lunar shadow saber aside. Then he used his hand to imitate it. At this moment, his killing intent was automatically hidden. It did not leak out at all. Suddenly, Xiao Chen comprehended it. He knew why his killing intent kept appearing. When he held the lunar shadow saber, he would unconsciously leak out some killing intent. After all, the purpose of the clear wind chop was to kill people. It would be impossible to use it without any killing intent. When the killing intent appeared, the killing chi would automatically surge out. However, when he punched out earlier, There was a killing intent in his heart, but no killing chi surged out. This was because he only used his fist and moved it. He treated it just as a simple movement. Xiao Chen grasped the lunar shadow saber once again and drew it out of the scabbard. He kept saying to himself, "This is just a movement. I am only performing a mechanical movement. I am only drawing the saber after picking it up. Just like walking and eating, this is just a simple movement. There is no need to overthink." Xiao Chen hypnotized himself just like this as he slowly executed the clear wind chop. The blade sliced through the air as he executed the Azure Dragon Cloud soaring art simultaneously. A cool breeze generated in the tunnel. Xiao Chen's mind was blank. He was very calm. Shua. A cold, sharp gleam flashed in the air. Xiao Chen's body paused in midair as he continued to execute the Azure Dragon Cloud soaring art. His feet were off the ground, as though he was riding on the cool breeze, as he continued to execute the clear wind chop 3 more times. Within the cool breeze, the black lunar shadow saber was like a tree branch dancing in the wind. It did not carry any killing intent. If one faced it, they would not feel any pressure at all. "I finally succeeded," Xiao Chen exclaimed in joy after he landed. He sent out a total of 4 clear wind chops. All of the killing intent was successfully hidden. So that was how to do it. This must be the so-called sudden enlightenment. A problem that could not be figured out for a long time was suddenly solved. Everything immediately became clear. Xiao Chen had these thoughts, but he did not know if one did not have enough experience and practice, how could there be a sudden enlightenment? As long as I hypnotize myself, I can hide the killing intent. If I can cheat even myself, how can I not cheat others? Xiao Chen was very excited. Xiao Chen continued his practice. There was a consistent cool breeze with a saber blade moving along it. Occasionally, there would be a cold light working together with the Azure Dragon Cloud soaring art to move about quickly, changing its movements unpredictably. Xiao Chen kept practicing until his essence went dry. He sat on the ground and thought about what he had learned. After a while, he put away the night pearls and made his way to the stone room. Along the way, Xiao Chen passed one of the excavation sites. Xiao Chen slowed down. He noticed there were about 10 spirit swallowing worms active in the middle of the excavation site. The zzz sound they made was unpleasing to the ear. This was the sound of them eating the spirit stone raw ore. The spirit swallowing worms treated the spirit stone raw ore as food and lived underground. Logically speaking, they should be the Heavenly Saber Pavilion's largest enemy. However, looking at this scene, it seemed more like they were rearing these spirit swallowing worms on purpose. Xiao Chen walked past this place every day. Every time he did so, there was an urge to kill them all. This was due to a lot of contribution points. After killing them all, he would have 50 contribution points. Suddenly, a strong wind blew behind Xiao Chen. A figure appeared behind him at lightning speed and tapped his shoulder with his right hand gently. Xiao Chen quickly focused and drew his lunar shadow saber. A blazing saber light was formed as essence gathered on its surface. Kai. Just as the saber light was about to complete forming, that figure flicked his finger on the lunar shadow saber. There was a ripple in the air as the saber was knocked back. Your reactions are not bad. You are able to draw your saber within one breath. You must have practiced your basic saber techniques to the middle perfection already. Ye Wen spoke to Xiao Chen with a gentle smile as he slowly appeared. When Xiao Chen saw it was Ye Wen, he slowly let down his guard. He sheathed his saber and cupped his hands in greeting. "Martial Uncle Yi, you speak too highly of me." Ye Wen smiled. When he saw the spirit swallowing worms before them, he said to Xiao Chen, "Are you finding it very strange that even though there are so many spirit swallowing worms, I do not go and kill them?" Xiao Chen nodded. This was exactly what he was thinking. If Ye Wen told him, it would be great. "Let's go, let me bring you somewhere. It's not a big secret, I'll tell you about it later." After Ye Wen spoke, He led Xiao Chen to navigate the tunnels, turning corner after corner. Along the way, he even activated some secret switches. Places which Xiao Chen thought were dead ends suddenly opened up. Where is he bringing me? Xiao Chen was very curious. He originally thought Ye Wen would bring him to the layer's headquarters. However, that was not the case. Walala. Suddenly, the sound of flowing water could be heard from in front of them. It was unknown what secret mechanism Ye Wen activated, but the wall before them moved aside. There was a cooling breeze blowing towards them from the door. A huge cave appeared before Xiao Chen. It was hundreds of meters tall and thousands of meters wide. This was no longer on the same scale as a cave. It was like someone had used brute force to carve out a space. There was a gushing underground river flowing rapidly. This was the source of the sound he heard earlier. The space had suddenly become so big. It felt extremely comfortable. What was even more surprising was Xiao Chen and Ye Wen were not the only ones here. There were many other people from the Heavenly Saber Pavilion. These people were all wearing a black light armor. Occasionally there would be a flash coming from them. There was a surging killing intent extending out from every one of them. Even though Xiao Chen was a distance away, he could feel the sharp killing intent. Even though he knew this killing intent was not directed at him, he felt as though he was being watched by an evil ghost. It felt very scary. Xiao Chen placed his hand on the handle of his saber. The killing intent in his heart was unconsciously being drawn out. There was an impulse to draw his saber and kill every single one of these people wearing the black light armor. Relax, don't be reckless. These are the people from the Divine Saber camp. They will not take action against you, Ye Wen suddenly called out just as Xiao Chen was about to lose control of himself. Ye Wen patted Xiao Chen's shoulder with his right hand and infused a stream of warm essence into him. After Ye Wen's warm essence entered Xiao Chen, the killing intent in Xiao Chen's heart calmed down. He stopped trembling. However, he felt fear in his heart. What was going on earlier? Why did I release so much killing chi without any reason? Ye Wen said indifferently, this is the evil chi. It is even more terrifying than killing chi. It can pull out the killing intent in your heart, causing one to fall into chaos. Xiao Chen looked on in horror at the Divine Saber camp's people across the river. He muttered to himself, how many people have they killed to form such horrifying evil chi? The Divine Saber camp is the most elite force in Heaven Saber Pavilion. What are they doing here? Are they protecting something? What is the purpose of Ye Wen bringing me here? Xiao Chen was filled with doubt. Just ignore them, you will be fine as long as you don't cross the river. I brought you here to take a breather. Don't think too much. Ye Wen dispelled Xiao Chen's doubt. Ye Wen led Xiao Chen to a stone table beside the river before stopping. Then, he produced a bottle of wine and 2 wine cups from nowhere, placing them on the table. Ji Yu Lu Lu. Ye Wen filled up both the wine cups and handed one to Xiao Chen. Ye Wen took a sip before saying, have a seat. Let me ask you, when did you join Qingyan Peak? How is Qingyan Peak's situation now? Xiao Chen picked up the wine cup and downed it in one gulp. There was a cool breeze coming from the river, making one feel refreshed. Xiao Chen guessed long ago that Ye Wen was someone from Qingyan Peak as well. He was not surprised at this question. I joined almost 3 months ago. When I came, everyone had left Qingyan Peak already. Only Lu Ruyu and her brother remained, Xiao Chen answered truthfully without holding anything back. Are you not aware of all this? When Ye Wen heard this, he revealed a bitter smile. I have not left for 10 years. I have only heard a bit of their situation. So when I saw someone from Qingyan Peak taking up the guard duty this time, I requested for you to be placed under my charge. Have not gone out for 10 years. Could it be that Ye Wen has been stuck here for these 10 years? How incredulous. Xiao Chen had only been here for 1 week, and he already felt it to be unbearable. He could not imagine what was it like to remain here for 10 years. Xiao Chen revealed an expression of shock. Us coming to the layers of the mine was your idea. Ye Wen smiled. That's right. You should actually be thanking me. If it were not for me, you would have been sent to the 20-odd layers. It is much deeper, and the environment is much worse there. No wonder Xiao Chen felt their work was straightforward. They normally did not have much to do during their patrols. So this was the reason why. That's right, have you found the 2 mutated corpses? Xiao Chen suddenly remembered the incident. Now that there was such a good opportunity, he could clarify it with Ye Wen. We already have some clues. However, you should not ask too much about it. Ye Wen did not answer Xiao Chen's question properly. Then he continued asking, based off what you said, your master must be Lu Ruyu, right? Seeing Xiao Chen nod, Ye Wen smiled gently. He muttered, she still hasn't given up yet. Rumble. Just at this moment, there was a loud rumbling coming from the opposite shore. Xiao Chen looked in that direction and discovered there was a large rock shaking continuously in the middle of empty grounds across the river. A huge force was shaking the entire cave along with it. Countless rocks fell from the ceiling. Xiao Chen saw this huge rock earlier, but he did not pay much note to it then. He originally thought it was only an ordinary rock. After all, it was not strange to see rocks underground. However, at this moment, a thick chain suddenly appeared around the huge rock. There was a saber stuck in the ground in each of the 8 directions around the huge rock. The thick chain was wound around the huge rock and the sabers. The huge rock was shaking non-stop as though it was about to fly out at any time. However, the 8 sabers did not move at all. Occasionally, there would be a gleam on the sabers. The light flowed along the chains and moved onto the huge rock. The rock that was originally leaving the ground was instantly pressed down. Rumble. After the rock was pressed back down, it flew back up again, causing the chain to shake non-stop. It seemed as though there was some evil demon sealed below the rock. There was a berserk roar coming from inside. It resounded everywhere in the vast cave. Xiao Chen stared at the 8 sabers and the chains. He was sure he did not see them earlier. If he had, he would not have ignored the huge rock. Xiao Chen extended his spiritual sense. However, in the area he probed, he could not feel any material object. Aside from the huge rock, he could not see the chains and sabers. What is going on? Am I seeing things? Xiao Chen thought suspiciously. I can clearly see them, but why can't I sense them with my spiritual sense? Wait, that's not right. These 8 sabers are indeed not material objects. These are the soul chains and soul holy weapons that form before death, Xiao Chen thought in shock. Xiao Chen finally understood what was going on. It was recorded in some ancient books that before sages died, they could merge their cultivation together with their martial spirit and turn into soul holy weapons and soul chains. What kind of enemy would require 8 sages to turn into soul holy weapons and soul chains to suppress it? What was so horrifying? What is inside this? Xiao Chen asked Ye Wen. Ye Wen took a look and said, a fiend king from 1,000 years ago. The fiend king wanted the spirit vein from our heavenly saber pavilion. In the end, 8 of our supreme elders sealed him. They were actually suppressing a king from the fiend race, Xiao Chen thought in astonishment. So, fiends exist in this world. The fiend race and the demons were different, they had existed on the Tianwu continent since the ancient era. According to legends, there were thousands of races during the immemorial era before the ancient era. Humans were just one of the weak races. For some unknown reason, the humans managed to obtain the final victory in the 100-race war. In the following ancient era, the human race occupied the dominant position. The other races either fled or were destroyed. Thus the human race spread throughout the Tianwu continent. Furthermore, after a few attacks from the demons, those races which had already been weakened completely disappeared from history. However, the fiend race was a special existence. They had survived for tens of thousands of years. They managed to avoid the attacks of demons and were not destroyed. There was a rumor that there was still a lot of the fiend race in the ancient desolate lands of the continent. Based on today, it seemed like the rumor might be true. Boom. A loud explosion sound, which surpassed the earlier one, resounded in the vast cave. A hairy hand extended out from beneath the huge rock. A surging aura poured out from underneath and spread throughout the cave, causing everyone to feel fear. In front of this boundless aura, they felt like ants. There were sharp claws on the 5 fingers of the huge hand, gleaming with a cold light. They headed for one of the sabers on the ground. It managed to grasp the handle within an instant. Xiao Chen's complexion changed. The azure dragon in his body felt threatened and released a faint pressuring might. This might easily resolve the surging aura. Xiao Chen muttered, "What is it trying to do? It has already been 1,000 years, why does he still have such terrifying might?" Every month around these few days, it becomes more irritable. There is no need to worry. These soul holy weapons and soul chains are not there as decorations. Furthermore, there is still the divine saber camp. It should not be able to cause any trouble. When Ye Wen saw that Xiao Chen was concerned, he quickly explained the situation. Pu Si. Indeed, as Ye Wen said, the instant the huge claw touched the saber handle, the soul chains crackled with lightning. The 8 soul holy weapon glowed with a resplendent light as well. Ah! A miserable cry came from underneath the huge rock. The soul holy weapons and soul chains were weapons that attacked the soul directly. It was unavoidable, no matter how strong one's physical body was. Bang! A cultivator from the divine saber camp snorted coldly. His figure flashed in the air. He leapt onto the huge rock and stamped heavily. Hoo hoo! The 8 soul holy weapons started to spin rapidly, winding back the soul holy chain continuously. Miserable cries kept coming from the underground. After a while, the miserable cries stopped. The 8 soul holy weapon and the soul chain disappeared. The cave regained its previous calm. Ye Wen got up and smiled at Xiao Chen. "Let's go. The show is over, and we have taken our breather. It was not too boring, right?" Xiao Chen nodded, but he felt as if he forgot something. Suddenly, he remembered. He said, "Wait, you still have not told me why we can't kill those spirit-swallowing worms." Ye Wen smiled casually. "It's not that you can't kill them, you just can't kill too many. If the Lingyun mountain range's spirit vein did not have these spirit-swallowing worms, it would have dried up already, given the 10,000 years of time. After the spirit-swallowing worms eat the spirit stone raw ore, the inner cores they produce become the best nourishment for the spirit vein's origin. If they were all killed, the spirit vein would dry up. The spirit vein's origin was the thing that produced spirit stone raw ore. If the spirit vein's origin dried up, the spirit mine would not produce spirit stones anymore." Xiao Chen could understand this principle. However, he did not expect the nourishment of the spirit vein's origin was the spirit-swallowing worm's inner core. That's not right. Why did you say the spirit-swallowing worm is the spirit mine's largest enemy? Ye Wen explained, "We can't have too many of them, either. If they ate up all the spirit stone raw ore, what would we dig up? That's why we must maintain a balance. Occasionally, we will kill a bunch. I said that to give you a reason to kill spirit-swallowing worms. After all, you are not able to kill too many of them by yourself." The two of them started their journey back. Along the way, Ye Wen continued to ask about Qingyan Peak's situation. Xiao Chen told Ye Wen everything he knew in detail. After Ye Wen heard about how badly Qingyan Peak fell, he occasionally sighed lightly. It was clear he felt extremely hurt. Like the previous few nights, when he returned the stone room, Mu Shinya was nowhere to be found. Xiao Chen did not know where she went. As he was already used to it, he did not pay it too much mind. Hey! After Xiao Chen finished his bath, he walked past Mu Shinya's bed and accidentally saw her Gangyu Peak identity token and the Hall of Contributions mission token under the pillow. She did not bring her identity token and mission token with her. Xiao Chen walked over and took them out. It was indeed Mu Shinya's Gangyu Peak identity token. There was the words, Gangyu, on the front and Mu Shinya's name behind. What was she doing? By leaving her identity token here, she would be able to hide her position from the map. Was she doing something she could not let others discover? In the past week, Xiao Chen had not seen Mu Shinya even once when he came back. Although he felt it was strange, he did not pay it too much mind. Everyone had their own secrets to keep. Just like himself, he would go out to practice his saber techniques every night for a long time before coming back. So, he could not be bothered to find out about her disappearance. However, since she left her identity token and mission token behind, the situation is completely different. It was clear she had something to hide. Xiao Chen's thoughts raced. I have stayed with her for a long time. I need to find out what's going on. Otherwise, if she has some malicious motives, I might get into trouble as well. Thinking of this, Xiao Chen extended his spiritual sense. He began searching for Mu Shinya within the mines. Despite searching several times, he could not find anything. Xiao Chen expanded the range of his search, and he managed to find something after a while. He finally found Mu Shinya within one of the dead tunnels. Across Mu Shinya was a tall, stout man about 2 meters tall. Xiao Chen controlled his spiritual sense to move carefully, and he saw who it was. He could not help but exclaim, Supervisor Lee. What is he doing with Mu Shinya? The two of them spoke very fast, but Xiao Chen had never heard this language before. He could not understand what they were saying. In the end, the two of them got into an argument. Mu Shinya had a very impatient expression on her face. Although he could not understand what they were saying, he could roughly guess what their relationship was, based on their expressions. They should not have a master-servant relationship. It seemed like they were bargaining over something. Supervisor Lee was not satisfied with the price Mu Shinya offered, resenting it for being too low. Mu Shinya was also extremely dissatisfied with him. Based on her expression, she should be scolding him for not keeping his promise. After a while, Mu Shinya and Supervisor Lee parted ways. She then headed for the stone room swiftly. Xiao Chen quickly withdrew his spiritual sense and placed Mu Shinya's identity token back in its original spot. After that, he lay on his own bed and pretended to sleep. The next morning, within the spirit mines. Boom! Xiao Chen pierced through a corpse's heart with his saber. Mu Shinya moved rapidly behind him. Her 2 sabers crisscrossed each other in the air and chopped off the head of the corpse. Who? Xiao Chen pulled out his saber and withdrew. He continued to draw the attention of the corpse. Mu Shinya followed up from behind, and there was a flash of saber lights. The corpse's arms were chopped off. Before long, the low-grade corpse died at their hands. It was chopped into 8 pieces. It was now as dead as a doorknob. Senior Brother Yi, that fight only lasted 5 minutes. Our cooperation is improving. Mu Shinya smiled at Xiao Chen. Xiao Chen smiled faintly without saying anything. The things he saw last night left a shadow in his heart. However, all Xiao Chen could do was be alert. He had to pretend nothing had happened in case he scared away the snake while beating the grass. TL note. Scaring away the snake while beating the grass is a Chinese idiom for alerting the enemy. Be careful. Xiao Chen's complexion suddenly paled. He rushed forward and sent a fist flying towards Mu Shinya. The wind from his fist blew strongly against her face as he struck a corpse behind her. It was unknown when this corpse climbed out of the ground behind her. It took advantage of the moment they were distracted to launch itself at Mu Shinya. Only a breath of time passed between the moment Xiao Chen shouted, "Be careful," to the moment his fist landed on the head of the corpse. Xiao Chen's physical body was incredibly strong. Under such an urgent situation, he put his full strength into this punch and blasted the head of this corpse into mush. Mu Shinya's reaction was very fast. She quickly spun around, and there were saber lights shining on her 2 sabers. She quickly chopped the corpse in half. So, it was a low-grade corpse. After they reacted to it, they quickly dealt with it. After learning this lesson, they did not dare be careless. They started to check their surroundings carefully and made sure it was safe before relaxing. Mu Shinya smiled gratefully at Xiao Chen. "Senior brother Yi, you saved me again. I really don't know what say." Xiao Chen waved it away casually. "I'll say the same thing as before, we still have a long time here. Who knows, I might need you to save me in the next moment." Mu Shinya smiled. "Senior brother Yi, I like hearing this. In that case, I will double my efforts and fight for an opportunity to repay this favor." At that moment, Mu Shinya had a moonstruck expression on her face, just like the lovable girl next door. Xiao Chen was finding it hard to connect her with the girl who spoke to Supervisor Lee the night before. The two of them continued their patrols. When they reached the area where Supervisor Lee was, Xiao Chen purposely lingered around a little longer. Supervisor Lee behaved as he did before. He put down what he was doing and greeted the two of them. "Greetings to Sir and Madam." Xiao Chen used his spiritual sense to inspect him carefully. Like before, there was no martial spirit in his body. He seemed like he was an ordinary person. Xiao Chen could not help but feel disappointed. There was clearly something wrong with Supervisor Lee. His eyes were brighter than the other miners. In the past, Xiao Chen could explain it as him being more optimistic, not numb like the other miners. However, after the previous night, he refused to believe that. However, he was not able to discover what was wrong. Regardless of whatever angle he looked from, he was an ordinary person who worked a strenuous job. "This little one will continue his work and not hold up, Sir and Madam." Supervisor Lee took his leave after greeting them. TL note. This manner of speaking is quite common when a person of lower status speaks to someone with higher status. They would frequently refer to themselves in the third person, sometimes calling themselves things like, "this little one," or "this humble servant." Taking advantage of the moment when Mu Shinya was not paying attention, Xiao Chen suddenly pushed a miner who was pushing a miner cart. That person was immediately pushed off balance, and the minecart fell over, falling towards Supervisor Lee. Rumble. All the spirit stone raw ore in the minecart fell out. The minecart landed and buried Supervisor Lee. The surrounding miners quickly came over and helped Supervisor Lee out. "What's going on?" Mu Shinya turned around and asked with suspicion. "Nothing. Just an ordinary accident. Let's go." Xiao Chen sighed to himself. Supervisor Lee behaved like an ordinary person. When he was suddenly attacked, he did not reveal anything exceeding what an ordinary person could do. Spirit Mines, 8-layer, headquarters. A cultivator investigating the disappearance of the missing miners told Ye Wen, "Elder Yi, we still have not found the missing miners. Furthermore, a few miners from this layer have gone missing every day. However, as there are not too many going missing at the same time, it has not resulted in mass hysteria." Ye Wen said indifferently, "Continue the investigation. Tabulate the total number of missing people. Then, report it to me every day." The days went by very fast in the mines. In the blink of an eye, another week had passed. Xiao Chen had already been in this place for half a month. His activities had also become routine. He would do his patrols in the day and polish his saber techniques, as well as practice the clear wind chop, during the night. He had already practiced the clear wind chop to the small perfection. When he drew his saber, he could not perfectly hide his killing chi within the cool breeze without leaking any of it out. He was steadily progressing toward the middle perfection. Aside from the days being boring, it was still rather peaceful. The only problem was that they could not cultivate. Before he came, the Purple Thunder Divine Incantation already reached the great perfection of the third layer. He was originally planning to make a breakthrough to the fourth layer this month, raising the Purple Thunder True Fire to another level. After that, he would be able to truly refine his own magic treasure. Given the current situation, he could only make do with what he had. He could only deal with it after he left. On this particular day, Xiao Chen and Mu Shinya prepared to go for their patrol as usual. However, Ye Wen leads someone unexpected to them. This is Ma Chen, you should have met him before. There were some accidents during his mission. So, he is here to continue it, Ye Wen said as he pointed to the person behind him. Ma Chen cupped his hand and greeted them, we meet again. When they were at the heaven viewing platform, before coming down to the mines, he shared his experience with everyone. Xiao Chen had a deeper impression of him compared to the rest. What kind of accident happened for him to be transferred from the lower layers to here? What about the rest? Why is he here alone? Xiao Chen's heart was filled with suspicion. After Ye Wen left, before Xiao Chen could speak, Shinya impatiently asked, Senior brother Ma, what happened to you? Where are the other senior brothers? Ma Chen revealed an expression filled with lingering fear as he responded, all dead. They dug up superior grade spirit stone raw ore, and a corpse king appeared. The few of us happened to walk past. The corpse king had been by the superior grade spirit stone raw ore for an unknown number of years. It could actually use the martial techniques from when it was alive. Furthermore, it had high spiritual intelligence. Superior grade spirit stone. There was shock in their hearts. For this spirit vein to produce a superior grade spirit stone, it was astonishing. Ever since the ancient era, the spiritual energy in the Tianwu continent has become thinner. At this time, even the great Jin nation, which had the densest spiritual energy, could not compare to that era. As for the other four nations, their spiritual energy was even thinner. It was already a pleasant surprise for a medial grade spirit stone to appear. It was unexpected for superior grade spirit stone raw ore to appear in Heavenly Saber Pavilion's spirit vein. The value of one superior grade spirit stone was equivalent to 1,000 medial grade spirit stone. However, if one wanted to exchange for a superior grade spirit stone, no one would be willing to. They were simply too rare. The energy in them was vast and pure. Even martial kings or martial monarchs would be attracted to it. With Xiao Chen's current cultivation, if he could find a suitable cultivation technique, by absorbing a superior grade spirit stone he could immediately advance to martial saint. Furthermore, it would not have any side effects. There was no need worry about it affecting his future cultivation. Xiao Chen recollected his thoughts and asked, what happened after that? Did they manage to obtain the superior grade spirit stone raw ore from the corpse king? Did you manage to kill the corpse king? Ma Chen replied, the corpse king had a strength that was close to a martial monarch. Furthermore, its body was as hard as steel. A regular saber was not able to injure it. They activated 10 peaked bladesmen from the divine saber camp. However, it still managed to escape in the end. Still, we managed to snatch the superior grade spirit stone raw ore. Xiao Chen and Ma Chen did not notice that when Ma Chen said the corpse king did not die, Shinya had a strange look on her face. Ma Chen continued saying, I really envy you too. The 8th layer of the mines is famous for being peaceful. There have never been any major incidents that have happened here before. I have no idea how the two of you managed to get assigned to this place, it has never happened in the past before. Xiao Chen was now starting to feel grateful to Ye Wen. If it were not for Ye Wen, he might have met with the corpse king. Who knows, he might have become a corpse by now. There were not many changes in the following days. Xiao Chen still continued to patrol in the day and practice in the night. The only difference now was that there were 3 of them, rather than 2. The day was no longer as boring as it previously was, they chatted a lot amongst the 3 of them. Shinya still went out for a long time. Everything she did was the same as the past and she occasionally met up with Supervisor Lee. Xiao Chen was still unable to understand what they were saying, so he could not do anything but keep his guard up. Shua. Within a dead tunnel, Xiao Chen was in the air. Before he drew the saber, there was a cool breeze that blew already. After the lunar shadow saber was drawn, there was a faint saber light amongst the cool breeze. The cool wind died off immediately. After Xiao Chen landed, there was an expression of joy on his face. He had finally succeeded in executing the second stage of the clear wind chop. There was a total of 3 stages to the clear wind chop. The first stage was to hide his killing chi, to erase the killing intent of his body and to make it impossible for other to quickly sense the moment he was going to make a move. Clear wind chop. Clear wind chop. Does the clear wind comes first or the chop comes first? If the clear wind came before the saber, it definitely should be the clear wind coming before the chop. However, if he could not draw the saber and create an air current, how could there be a cool breeze? Thus, the second stage of the clear wind chop was to practice to the point where the wind came before the saber. After working hard for half a month, Xiao Chen finally succeeded in executing the second stage. He was about to make a start on the third stage. This was the stage where the attack was practiced to the great perfection. To see only the clear wind and not the saber. If he managed to practice till he completely hid the saber amongst the cool breeze, the opponent would not be able to discover its direction. At this point, the clear wind chop would have been practiced to the great perfection. I finally learned it. Looks like my talent is not too bad. I was able to practice this clear wind chop to middle perfection within half a month. Maybe I can practice it to the great perfection by the end of the month, Xiao Chen said joyfully. Xiao Chen continued to practice. Like before, when his essence ran dry, he would start heading back to the stone room. Young Master Yi. A faintly discernible voice could be heard. Xiao Chen was familiar with this voice. Normally, when the miners and the supervisors met Xiao Chen, they would greet him this way. When he turned around, it was a supervisor he met frequently. It seemed like he had been waiting in the pitch-dark tunnels. Xiao Chen stopped and asked, "Supervisor Zhao, how did you find me?" Supervisor Zhao said dispiritedly, "I had been meaning to look for young master for quite a while already. The miners I am in charge of heard that young master frequently comes out at night to practice his saber. So I waited here." Xiao Chen nodded. It was no longer a secret he came out at night to practice. "Why are you looking for me? Did you run into a corpse?" Supervisor Zhao had not seen the sun for a long time, so after he washed his face, he looked incredibly pale. When this was coupled with his dull eyes, he seemed quite miserable. "That's not it. Recently, some of our brothers have been disappearing mysteriously. Initially, I did not notice it as it was normal for people to disappear within the mines. However, I heard from the other supervisors that their people were going missing too. Furthermore, this was a complete disappearance. In the past, even if they disappeared, we would eventually find their bodies. Unlike the past, we were unable to find their bodies this time." Xiao Chen frowned after he heard Supervisor Zhao's words. This is clearly a premeditated disappearance. There is definitely someone pulling the strings behind all this. Every supervisor is missing 1 or 2 people. The numbers may not look big, but when they are all added up, the numbers are horrifying. There are at least 20 supervisors and each supervisor leads at least 100 miners. If all of them occasionally lost 1 or 2, when the numbers are all added up, it would be more than 100. What exactly was causing all these miners to disappear with a trace? Xiao Chen collected his thoughts and said to Supervisor Zhao, "All right, I understand the situation. I will report it to Elder Yi tomorrow." Supervisor Zhao hesitated for a while. The expression on his face suggested that he was struggling with something. Finally, he made up his mind and said, "Young Master Yi, I have a few brothers who would finish their 5-year term at the end of this month. Now that something like this happened, they are all alarmed. They wish to leave early and they are even willing to receive less payment." When Xiao Chen heard this, he had an unsightly expression. There has been no precedent of this before. Furthermore, this matter is not managed by me. My words carry no weight. Supervisor Zhao said anxiously, "Young Master Yi, you are a good person, we all know this. In the past, those guarding us did not even bother to look at us miners. They all gave us a cold look, not to mention mockings. Occasionally, they would even beat us up. In the time you have been here, you have never mistreated us. Everybody knows about this. Xiao Chen had heard about the thing this supervisor talked about from Ma Chen. Many of the Heavenly Saber disciples who accepted this mission could not endure the boredom in the mine. They would frequently take out their frustrations on the miners. This was a very common thing. Xiao Chen smiled bitterly. Even if he did not do anything, he was considered a good person. There were far too few good people in this world. Young Master Yi, I will kneel to you. You have to help me to resolve this matter. These people would complete their terms at the end of this month. If there were any accidents, it would not be worth it. Seeing Xiao Chen mutter to himself, Supervisor Zhao dropped to his knees and kneeled in front of Xiao Chen. Xiao Chen was startled and quickly helped Supervisor Zhao up. He asked, I can speak on behalf of you to Marshal Uncle Yi. However, I cannot guarantee anything. Supervisor Zhao said gratefully, you saying something is all that I ask for. I thank young Master Yi in advance. I will take my leave first. As Xiao Chen watched Supervisor Zhao leave, Xiao Chen sank into deep thought. He had always been idly watching Mu Shinya's actions. However, after today, the sense that something was wrong grew stronger. The next morning, Xiao Chen started to secretly question the other supervisors. He asked them about the situation. Xiao Chen's methods had always been prudent. The matter that Supervisor Zhao spoke about was quite serious. Regardless of whether he was lying or not, he would never be able to understand the truth of the situation by speaking to only one person. Xiao Chen finally managed to finish questioning the 20-odd supervisors. Indeed, it was as Supervisor Zhao said, almost every supervisor had miners that had disappeared mysteriously. There were some who lost 5 or 6 and at the minimum, they lost 1 or 2. After thinking for a long time, he looked for Supervisor Lee and his group of miners behind Mu Shinya's and Ma Chen's backs. Oh. Young Master Yi. How come you are alone today? Where is the other young master and the young mistress? As usual, when Supervisor Lee saw Xiao Chen, he would greet him warmheartedly. Xiao Chen nodded to acknowledge his statement and said, Supervisor Lee, have your subordinates been disappearing without a trace mysteriously? Supervisor Lee tried to recall before he replied, I never heard of anything like that at all. All the people I have are not missing. What's wrong? Young master, did something happen? While Supervisor Lee spoke, Xiao Chen carefully observed his expression. Like before, he did not discover anything. Xiao Chen said indifferently, nothing, just a casual question. I'll be taking my leave first. Xiao Chen turned around a corner and stopped. He turned his spiritual sense into a fine thread and continued observing the supervisor. I don't believe you can cover yourself for so long. Supervisor, what did the guardian ask? A few miners came over and asked. Supervisor Lee waved his hands and said, just do your work. Don't ask so many questions. After observing for a long time, Supervisor Lee seemed like his usual self. He led a group of miners and seriously worked on mining. There were no changes to his expression. There were no strange changes as a result of Xiao Chen's question. Could it be that the person meeting with Mu Shinya was not Supervisor Lee? Xiao Chen had his suspicions as he thought, how could an ordinary person hide himself so deeply? Xiao Chen withdrew his spiritual sense and shook his head. There was something he could not figure out. After Xiao Chen left and was far away, Supervisor Lee tossed aside the pickaxe in his hand. His gaze seemed as though he was able to see through the wall and see Xiao Chen leaving. His eyes revealed a murderous intent. When Xiao Chen reached the headquarters of this layer, he coincidentally met with Ye Wen. He quickly went over and reported everything he investigated to Ye Wen. When he finished, he told Ye Wen of Supervisor Zhao's request. After Ye Wen heard this, he indifferently said, all right, I understand the situation. You can go back first. When Xiao Chen saw that Ye Wen did not seem to care, he said worriedly. Marshal Uncle Yi, these people's term are about to come to an end anyway. There should not be any problem in reducing their payments and letting them go early, right? Ye Wen seemed to be very busy as was already prepared to leave. When he heard Xiao Chen's words, he stopped and said, "You are only seeing the problem from your angle. There is no problem with 50 miners leaving. After all, their term is almost up. However, have you thought about this? There are about 2,000 miners in this layer. At this moment, there are already worries in everyone's heart. If a large group of miners left at this moment, have you thought about the consequences? If at this moment, there was a large group of people leaving, it would definitely induce a panic in the rest of the miners. After some time, the situation might escalate to a point where it was unresolvable." Xiao Chen instantly thought of this scenario. Although the logic was sound, Xiao Chen kept feeling that something was wrong. "You should go first, we already knew about this situation. I will deal with it in a couple of days," Ye Wen consoled Xiao Chen when he saw that he was silent. Xiao Chen thought for a while before he said, "Marshal Uncle Yi, don't go yet. I still have something to report." After thinking for a long time, although he did not have any evidence, Xiao Chen finally still made the decision to tell Ye Wen of the matter of Mu Shinya and Supervisor Lee. After Ye Wen heard this, there was still no changes to his expression. "We are all from the same sect. If there is no evidence, don't report them." Xiao Chen felt unconvinced as he said, "Marshal Uncle Yi, I." Ye Wen interrupted him and said, "There is no need to speak further. Go back quickly. If you make such reports without evidence again, I will show no mercy." On the same night, the 8th layer of the mine, within a dead tunnel. Supervisor Lee said to Mu Shinya, "The fellow who came down with you seemed to have noticed something. He tried to test me once today." Mu Shinya did not feel surprised. "Not a problem, he does not have evidence. Furthermore, he is not a nosy person." Supervisor Lee still felt worried. "Should we silence him? I am still not ready yet. If this fellow ruins things for us, there will be trouble." Mu Shinya shook her head. "No need for that. We will just move our operation forward to tomorrow. That will do it." When Supervisor Lee heard this, his expression changed. He said in shock, "We make our move tomorrow? That's too rushed. The longer I refine that thing, the stronger it is. It would be safer to do it at the end of the month." Mu Shinya said indifferently, "We also have the 2 mutated corpse kings as well as the corpse king we just discovered. That is a total of 3 corpse kings. Each corpse king has the strength of a martial monarch. We should be able to deal with most things. According to the agreement, you need to increase my payment by half. I have been in here for 10 years already and have been living an unbearable life. I've had enough of this already." As Supervisor Lee spoke, he revealed an agitated expression. Mu Shinya frowned slightly. "My race has already prepared this plan for 100 years. What do your 10 years of effort count for? When it reaches the critical point, you start to go back on your words. That is too unreliable." Supervisor Lee chuckled. "Whatever you say, either you do what I say or we can forget about this." A sharp killing chi flashed in her eyes as her aura was raised suddenly. It was as though she was going to attack at any moment. Supervisor Lee smiled indifferently and stepped forward fearlessly. Finally, Mu Shinya compromised. She snorted coldly, "As you wish. I will increase the medial grade spirit stones you receive to 3,000. In another tunnel, Xiao Chen was in a restless state of mind. He practiced his saber in a messy manner, creating violent gusts of wind in the tunnel lit brightly by night pearls. Saber lights flashed frequently and there were shouts in the air occasionally. Xiao Chen casually practiced a set of saber techniques. When his aura was raised to its peak, he shouted loudly. He flung his lunar shadow saber violently. The saber glowed as it stabbed into the stone wall. Shua shua. Black rocks kept falling from the wall. The lunar shadow saber's blade was completely buried in the wall. Xiao Chen's frustration and anger were clear to see. It could be said that Xiao Chen had done his best to obtain the news. He did not think of obtaining any rewards, he just wanted Ye Wen to pay more note to it. Who knew that Ye Wen would simply label him as a tattletale? It caused Xiao Chen to be very depressed. He took a few deep breaths before he calmed himself down. It seemed like Supervisor Zhao's matter was a no-go, he had no idea how to face him tomorrow. Never mind, the cart will find its way around the hill when it gets there, Xiao Chen sighed to himself. It would be fine as long as he could make sure nothing major happened before the end of the month. TL note. The cart will find its way around the hill when it gets there, this means things will eventually sort itself out. It was just a girl and ordinary minors. I should be more cautious, even though I do not believe that they could cause any major problems. The next morning, Xiao Chen behaved like he normally would, as though nothing had happened. He left for the patrol together with Ma Chen and Mu Shinya. The morning passed peacefully like this without any incidents. It caused one to feel that something was wrong. Not to mention the corpses, even the spirit-swallowing worms they could normally see had all vanished without a trace. The mines were so peaceful that it was frightening. Just as Xiao Chen thought that he was wrong, Ma Chen suddenly said, "What's going on today? I keep feeling that something is wrong." Xiao Chen exchanged a look with him. He said in astonishment, "You have this feeling as well. I thought it was just me." Ma Chen had done this mission in the mines many times. His instincts should be trustworthy. Xiao Chen could not help but remain on guard. During the patrols in the afternoon, Xiao Chen paid extra attention to his surrounding environment. He also paid a lot of attention to Mu Shinya. If anything happens, it definitely will have something to do with Mu Shinya. As long as I keep an eye on her, I should be able to deal with it. When they reached an area where the paths divided, which they frequented, Xiao Chen ignored the two dead tunnels and headed for the well-lit tunnel on the left. "Young Master Yi, is that you?" Xiao Chen did not get far before a weak voice suddenly came from one of the dead tunnels. He quickly stopped and headed to one of the dead tunnels to take a look. He extended out his spiritual sense and saw that person's appearance. Xiao Chen was startled. It was that supervisor who went missing for nearly half a month. "Who is there?" Ma Chen asked cautiously. Xiao Chen replied, "He is the supervisor Wang I mentioned to you the previous time. He had been missing for half a month. I did not expect for him to turn up here." "Young Master Yi, is that you?" The weak voice drifted over again. It sounded like it was issued from clenched teeth. Hearing it made one feel their scalp go numb, making them uncomfortable. Ma Chen already drew his saber and his entire body was tense. He was completely in a state of high alert. He said to Xiao Chen, "Junior brother Yi, should we go take a look?" Xiao Chen muttered to himself for a moment, pretending to think. Actually, he was using his spiritual sense to observe that supervisor. He discovered that aside from his life force being extremely weak, there was nothing else wrong with him. Even so, this person had disappeared for half a month. Suddenly appearing like this was strange. They did not dare to be careless. "We should go over and take a look, we just need to remain alert." Xiao Chen grasped the hilt of the lunar shadow saber as he led Ma Chen into the dead tunnel. When they drew near, they discovered that Supervisor Wang was lying on the ground. He was leaning weakly against the wall and was moaning breathlessly. When Xiao Chen saw this, he let his guard down. Xiao Chen took out a bottle of water and delivered it to him. Supervisor Wang revealed an expression of joy. He extended his hand to receive the bottle of water. Hu Kai. Kang. Chang. Xiao Chen did not discover anything wrong. However, he had only stretched his hand out halfway before Ma Chen at the side hacked out with his saber. His saber broke through the air, it was extremely fast and completely unavoidable. The sharp saber blade hacked Supervisor Wang's arm, but something strange happened. Supervisor Wang's hand was not harmed, it even gave off a metallic sound. Xiao Chen's expression changed and he quickly retreated backward. Supervisor Wang, who was on the ground, leapt up and stood rapidly. He had shed off his pretense completely and a rotting stench came from his body. His clothes exploded apart, revealing dried black skin. How did you discover something was wrong? Xiao Chen asked Ma Chen. Ma Chen quickly answered, his fingers were all black, they completely lost the look of a human's. So that was how. Xiao Chen looked at Supervisor Wang in shock. After not seeing him for half a month, Supervisor Wang had turned into a corpse. Ga. 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 A strange laughter came from Supervisor Wang's mouth. He said clearly, I originally wanted to give you a surprise. I did not expect you to discover it. Ma Chen was pale and he said quietly, something is wrong, how does he still have his consciousness? After being infected with the corpse poison, he should have turned into a mindless corpse. Xiao Chen frowned slightly, he could not figure out what was going on either. Humans turning into corpses had happened before. However, ordinary people who were infected with the corpse poison would become mindless corpses. These mindless corpses did not have much combat prowess. Even ordinary people would find it easy to avoid them. Supervisor Wang laughed weirdly a few times before he said, can I be compared to those mindless corpses? I am a corpse monarch. A person who walks the path of corpses. A monarch of thousands of corpses. Who? He clawed the air with his hands and a golden cape appeared out of nowhere. He put it on his body and then put a golden crown on his head. A skinny corpse wearing such an outfit felt very strange. Who cares what you are? I'll hack you to death with my saber. Mountain-splitting chop. Ma Chen snorted coldly and leapt into the air. His body moved quickly into the air. He had already practiced this mountain-splitting chop to the great perfection. A huge mountain appeared above his head. It seemed like it carried tens of thousands of kilograms of force, its might was boundless and majestic. Supervisor Wang, or the corpse monarch, laughed coldly. He pointed to the ground and it split open. A corpse broke through the ground and leapt at Ma Chen. Chop. Ma Chen looked at the corpse that clawed and bit at the air. A look of disdain appeared in his eyes. He shouted loudly and the saber that carried the tens of thousands of kilograms of force chopped down on the corpse. Suddenly, Xiao Chen felt that something was wrong. He quickly looked at the corpse in the air. A purple light flashed in his eyes for a moment and he could see the condition of the corpse clearly. He could see countless black lights flowing in its veins. There was spiraling black qi in the location of its dantian, spinning like a hurricane. Xiao Chen was startled. This corpse was clearly a ticking time bomb. The black qi flowing in the veins were the fuse. Once they were broken, it would explode. Furthermore, its might was definitely not small. If Ma Chen was not prepared, he would be at a disadvantage. Azure Dragon Tail Whip. Xiao Chen shouted and a boundless essence gathered at his right foot. He stomped the ground and it trembled slightly. Suddenly, Xiao Chen seemed to be enveloped in an illusion of the Azure Dragon. It was as though he had turned into a dragon. The dragon's tail swung in the air and caused an intense ripple. Space started to tremble. In the next instant, Xiao Chen's figure formed an arc of light in the air. He arrived before Ma Chen immediately and used the three flowing cloud images. Xiao Chen turned into a boundless ocean and struck the corpse gently with his scabbard. An intense wave surged from the ocean and threw the corpse toward the corpse monarch. This was the first time Xiao Chen had used a high-leveled technique from the Azure Dragon Cloud Soaring art. After the true might of the heaven-ranked movement technique was revealed, his speed was instantly raised to the peak. Not only was Ma Chen unable to react, the corpse emperor was unable to react as well. The corpse flu had crossed half the distance between them before the corpse emperor managed to react. Its withered face revealed a strange smile as it flicked its finger. Boom! The corpse exploded in the air, turning into bits. It turned into a black ball of qi, expanding into its surroundings. When Ma Chen's mountain-splitting chop struck the chi ball, it was like they were evenly matched. He somersaulted in the air before landing firmly on the ground. Traceless flowing water. Xiao Chen remained in the air and executed a technique from the 3 flowing cloud images with ease. The scabbard moved with the gentleness of flowing water, sweeping the black chi ball away without a trace. When the black chi ball was dispersed, Xiao Chen and Ma Chen looked cautiously at the corpse monarch. Although it called itself the corpse monarch, it did not have the strength of a martial monarch. It was about equivalent to a human martial king. Even so, a martial king was not something the two of them could deal with. Furthermore, this was a monster and it was extremely strange. It was significantly stronger than a regular martial king. Since you can receive a blow from me without dying, I will spare you. Ga. 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 The corpse monarch laughed strangely. He waved his right hand and corpses streamed out of the ground continuously. Upon careful inspection, these corpses were the missing miners. Someone had used special methods to refine them. They were much stronger than the regular corpses. The corpse monarch laughed strangely. Have fun, I still have things to do. Ga. 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 The corpse monarch slowly sank into the ground and quickly disappeared without a trace. However, the ground was still as smooth as it was before, there were no traces of cracks at all. Earth evasion spell. When Xiao Chen saw the way the corpse monarch had left, he immediately thought of the earth evasion spell recorded in the Compendium of Cultivation. What he just saw was almost exactly the same as the earth evasion spell. However, the situation did not permit him to be able to think about it. The corpses that surrounded them had already launched themselves at the pair rapidly. The narrow tunnel was densely packed with hundreds of corpses. Pooh. 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 Xiao Chen moved the scabbard in his hand very quickly as he turned into flowing water. He launched himself at the corpses. He managed to push all of them back and he was able to occasionally help out Ma Chen. Suddenly Xiao Chen thought of something. He turned around and asked Ma Chen behind him, "Senior brother Ma, did you see junior sister Mu?" Ma Chen had an alarmed expression. Then he felt it was strange. That's right, where is junior sister Mu? When did she leave? Damn it. Xiao Chen cursed in his heart. In the end, after staying on guard for so long, he still let her disappear quietly without a trace. Mu Shinya must have taken advantage of the time they were distracted by Supervisor Wang to slip away. Ma Chen kicked away a corpse, then he leaned to the side and avoided another attack. After that, he struck a corpse with his saber, creating a metallic clang. It was as if he had struck metal. The corpse was simply knocked back, it was not split in half. Junior brother, what should we do? These corpses seem invulnerable. Furthermore, there are so many of them. I'm afraid I can't think of anything. The situation is bad. Ma Chen said anxiously. Xiao Chen just muttered to himself without saying anything. He was carefully searching for a solution. These corpses were only as fast and as strong as an ordinary martial grand master. If so, with Ma Chen's cultivation, he should be able to kill them easily. Furthermore, if nothing went wrong, Xiao Chen would be able to deal with this horde himself. However, the problematic thing was that the skin of these corpses were like steel. When the saber blade struck them, they only left a shallow mark. The matter that caused him a headache was that these corpses did not feel pain. If you were not able to knock them back, they would ignore their injuries and attack continuously. It was extremely troublesome. Xiao Chen would be able to escape easily, but he did not wish to reveal too much of his abilities to Ma Chen. After all, he had only known him for a while. It was best to stay on his guard. Break out. Senior brother Ma, there is no point in staying here out of pride, Xiao Chen said indifferently. Ma Chen had completed this mission in the mines many times. Xiao Chen did not believe that he lacked trump cards. There can only be one reason why he had not used his trump card. He wanted to preserve his strength and force Xiao Chen to reveal his hand. Ma Chen revealed an awkward expression and smiled bitterly. I am really not holding back because of pride. I am truly not confident and I really require you to help me out. Otherwise, I will not be able to accomplish it. Bang! 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 Xiao Chen wielded his saber with his left hand and punched with his right fist thrice, easily forcing back 3 corpses that had launched themselves forward. His body was tempered by the 7-leaf flower and the training he did in the past. Even without using essence, he could rely on his physical strength and punch out with more than 1,000 kilograms of force. These corpses were forced back by him with one punch. Even their steel-like skin was slightly cracked by Xiao Chen as they were knocked flying. The corpses behind them were also knocked to the ground. When Ma Chen saw this, he felt very astonished. He could not tell why Xiao Chen had such strength despite being an inferior grade martial grand master. What good move does senior brother Ma have to break through the encirclement that would require my help to execute? I will do what I can, Xiao Chen said. Ma Chen pushed back 2 corpses with his saber as he said, I have an area of effect martial technique. It should be able to carve a path out for us. However, it takes some time to execute it. As such, I need junior brother Ye to protect me for a while. That is not a problem, Xiao Chen said. Xiao Chen used the Azure Dragon Cloud soaring art and he moved rapidly around Ma Chen. It looked like the Azure Dragon was circling around him. Xiao Chen used his scabbard like a club to knock back the corpses launching themselves at them. Under Xiao Chen's protection, there were no corpses within 10 meters of Ma Chen. Ma Chen inhaled deeply and a bright light flashed in his eyes. Suddenly, he took 2 steps forward and shouted. The surrounding spiritual energy surged towards his saber blade like flowing water. Flowing water breaking mountain. There was a sound of gushing water within the tunnels. An unearthly river gathered on Ma Chen's saber. Ma Chen flicked his saber forward slightly and a visible ripple could be seen extending out into the surroundings. The mountain-splitting saber technique was a very common saber technique in the Heavenly Saber Pavilion. However, there were very few people who could practice it to the 9th move, flowing water breaking mountain. This Ma Chen could be considered as someone who surpassed his peers. Rumble. The corpses launching themselves at the pair were immediately blasted back. The river on the saber then blasted away the corpses that were blocking their way in the front. I'm not done yet. Gather. Suddenly, Ma Chen swung his saber. The scattered river gathered back together before firing out an instant later. All the corpses in a straight path were pierced through their chest. They then collapsed and fell apart in the next moment, crumbling into pieces. They became as dead as doorknobs. Flowing water breaking mountain. So that is how it is. The flowing water was only a prelude. The breaking mountain bit is the true finishing move, Xiao Chen thought to himself. The 2 of them took advantage of this opportunity to break out from the horde of corpses. They managed to break out to an open space. Afterwards, they both executed their movement techniques and threw off the corpses that chased after them. Let's go, we need to inform Marshal Uncle Ye quickly. The 2 of them quickly headed to the 8th layer's headquarters. However, before they had gotten very far, they discovered something they had not expected. All the miners they met along the way had turned into corpses. They obstructed their path, making it very hard for them to advance forward. The good thing was that these corpses did not have strong bodies like the corpses they encountered earlier. With their strength, it was easy to deal with these corpses. Another corpse recklessly charged towards Xiao Chen. He punched its head and the wind caused its hair to be blown back, revealing a pale and miserable face. Xiao Chen's expression changed and he could not help but pause. How could it be him? This corpse was the supervisor that had begged Xiao Chen for help the night before. It was just a night and his premonitions came true. Including him, all the miners that had almost completed their term had all turned into corpses. Shua. While Xiao Chen was distracted, a saber light slashed downwards and split a corpse into half. Ma Chen said anxiously, "What are you thinking about?" Be careful of the corpse poison. If you get infected, you will turn into a corpse as well. Who? Xiao Chen sent out 2 gusts of winds with his palm and blew away the black fluid the corpse spurted out to the side. Although his expression did not change, his heart felt like it had been stabbed by something and he felt an incredible heartache. Let's go, stop daydreaming. Ma Chen quickly urged when he saw Xiao Chen not moving. Xiao Chen let out a grunt as he did his best to recover his calm. After he picked himself up, he followed behind Ma Chen and headed for the headquarters quickly. The 2,000-odd miners in the mines had all turned into corpses. The pair did not hesitate to attack them, easily killing their way forward. A journey that would normally take 10 minutes now required an hour to complete. When they arrived, something surprising happened again. The 10-odd martial saints who were normally at the headquarters had all vanished. The place was completely empty and there was no one around. There were piles of finished inferior-grade spirit stones in one of the huge rooms, their glow was very dazzling. In front of the door to the stone room, there was a barrier of light. The 2 of them knew it was a special barrier. Without a permit, they would not be able to enter. Even though there were so many spirit stones, they could only look at them. After spending much effort to rush over, the 2 of them did not expect such a result. The 2 of them discussed with each other for a while before they decided to find a place to rest. They definitely could not travel by the path they took to get here, that was filled with corpses. They had already killed corpses until they were tired. They did not want to continue doing that. They took out the map and picked a desolated dead tunnel. They were prepared to go there to rest before making further plans. They hurried to the location and went deep into the tunnel before they relaxed. Ma Chen immediately plopped his butt on the ground and panted, "After coming here for so long, this is the first time I encountered such a situation. It might really be the end this time." Xiao Chen was already starting to calm down. He asked, "Senior brother Ma, you are more experienced. Is there any method to turn so many people into corpses and make them behave so deranged?" Ma Chen thought for a while before answering. "Aside from the already running corpse sect which is already extinct in the Tianwei continent, I can't think of any other reasons. However, this running corpse sect has already disappeared for almost 1,000 years. The running corpse sect was an extremely evil sect. The period prior to the Tianwu dynasty was the most chaotic time of mankind. That was also the most glorious period for the running corpse sect. The running corpse sect was separated into 2 factions, one faction focused on herding and controlling corpses. If they obtained a strong corpse, their combat prowess would increase significantly. This faction was denounced by mankind. In order to find strong corpses, they would frequently dig up the remains of others' ancestors. The corpses of regular people did not hold any attraction to them. They specialized in digging out the ancestors of big clans and sects. These powers had strong ancestors, so they were the first target of the running corpse sect. Before the Tianwu dynasty, they even dug out a great emperor's body. After they turned it into a moving corpse, it became even more powerful than when it was alive. It was almost unparalleled. However, they finally incited public anger and the Tianwu emperor personally moved and killed all the experts of this faction. After this faction was completely destroyed and disappeared from the world completely. Aside from this faction, there was another faction. This faction cultivated the way of corpses. They used special cultivation techniques to refine themselves into corpses that were neither dead or alive.